Maybe it's me.
That was a lot of rustling from that pillow. You've gone from chair creaking to pillow rustling in just 1 week.
Right, busy week. I think we went out to our first kind of live performance. We went to Cindy V, the comedian.
An actual gig, Cindy V off of the TV. We did not go and see a movie for once.
Stand-up comedian and fellow podcaster.
Yes, and guest on many podcasts. Yeah, maybe one day she'll be a guest of ours when she does a big movie appearance, which I'm sure is coming.
Tell you something that wasn't funny.
Uh-oh.
That new series on Netflix called The Maid. Limited series. I'm not even going to tell you who starred in it and all that kind of stuff, but I started it and I finished it in like 3 days. It was brilliant, or it is brilliant. So if you get a chance to check it out, and maybe as it's a limited series, we might cover it on a later episode.
Is it a prequel to The Handmaid's Tale?
Nope, not even in the same universe.
Thank goodness.
Put that out of your mind. Kind of over The Handmaid's Tale, actually.
Yeah,
but I'm going to watch it. There's one last series come out. Anyway, talking of Handmaid's Tale and horror, thank you very much to everybody who responded to our question or our call out on our poll. There you go. Our survey poll on Instagram where we asked, what horror films would you like us to talk about and discuss in the month of October? Because this month, because it's Halloween, we're going to every episode do one movie that we like and then one horror movie. So the public has spoken, our Gremlins have spoken, and for our first episode, thank you to Sabrina, Surya and Brendan, we're going to be covering Scream. But before we get on to Scream and some mid-90s horrific content, we're going to be talking about The Guilty.
Which is brand new.
The new Jake Gyllenhaal movie that's currently out on Netflix. Just a little factoid here. Sorry, Bernie, another gremlin who does not like the fact I use the word factoid.
Little factoid for you about Bernie. He does not like that word.
The Guilty is a remake of a Danish original, which was written and directed by Gustav Müller of the same name. So, yeah, again, Hollywood has pilfered Scandi Noir for
Hollywood
content.
Has source material.
Well, let's say Netflix.
Just like Shakespeare, who also had source material.
So, when we come back, I am going to... Is this my arm? My arm's rubbing and making noise. I'm so sorry, guys. Why is it always me that's making all these noises? So unfortunate. When we come back, I'm going to be telling you my Jake Gyllenhaal story.
Ooh.
So picture this. Mid to late noughties. So when you say late noughties, is that like 2009, 2010?
Yeah, pretty much.
So mid to late noughties, I'm in Fashion Week, at a party. What was that noise?
That was that was my fingernail on the sofa. Look, I'll do it again.
God, we're a mess.
I'll do it again.
Okay.
So that's what it is. It's nothing else.
So picture me, younger, at Fashion Week, at a party,
of course you were.
In a cool warehouse in East London.
Obvs.
Went there with a couple of friends. One of my friends was having a little moan about he wasn't getting any attention from the opposite sex. So I said, right, I can get some drinks from the bar. Came back from the bar, saw him from behind, his kind of silhouette. So I thought, okay, I'll just give him a smack on the behind or ass
while
for American
drinks.
Gremlins.
That's incredible.
And he turned around and it was Jake Gyllenhaal. And before I could say anything, all I could see was the kind of stomach of this huge security guard in front of me. So I kind of snaked my way around him, followed Jake as he was leaving, and I was like, Jake, I'm sorry, it's an accident. He said, dude, don't worry, it's okay, don't worry.
Oh, Jake,
anyway,
so chilled out.
It turns out Jake Gyllenhaal has a massive head in comparison to his body, and he was there filming a music video. The proportions were like all off. But yeah, that was my Jake Gyllenhaal story.
Thanks for that. It was a good little setup to what I presume is coming next is the rundown.
But before we go on to that...
Are we going for digression central?
Yeah, not to make it's all about Jake. I'm not obsessed with him or anything, but I just found out a couple of interesting facts about him that I thought our Gremlins might want to know.
Jake factoids.
Yeah, Jake factoids. Jacktoids. So Jake enjoys woodworking and cookery. When Jake was 26, he and his sister had a close encounter with death while on holiday in San Francisco. A fire sparked by a falling tree broke out and burned down the lodge they were staying in. So they almost died. I guess we've all almost died at some point.
Well, we've all been in lodges in San Francisco on holiday,
His godfather was, because he's dead, the legendary actor Paul Newman.
Whoa.
No relation to Gary Newman. And his godmother is the amazing, still alive, actress Jamie Lee Curtis. Which is quite fitting, actually, because, we're going into month of horror.
Well, also, I wish I'd known that when I wrote all the notes for Scream in relation to Halloween.
And if you want to know what Jake's butt feels like, I can maybe recreate it with my hand, like form a shape. Anyway, so the movie rundown, let's talk about The Guilty. Okay, so the movie starts with a biblical quote. Literally, the first frame is a biblical quote, which says, "The truth will set you free." Now, as a very good lapsed Roman Catholic, yes. I know this quote in its entirety.
Did you pick up your Bible just to check that you'd memorised it correctly?
No, I'm definitely not reading this. This is all coming directly from my mind. You ready? I can tell, I just know this is John 8:31-32.
Sounds like it, yeah.
And if you just give me a second, I'll recite it. So Jesus said to the Jews who believed in him, "If you abide by my word and you are my true disciples, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." Really sounds like I was there.
Yeah.
Now, I know I'm jumping to the end, but I feel like this quote has no connection to the movie. Yes, you'll say it's about redemption, but it's pretty loose.
Redemption and atonement.
Before I started watching this movie, all I could think about, based off of the title and the imagery, was that it somehow relates to Halle Berry's movie, 2013 movie, The Call.
A forgotten classic, so forgotten that I've never seen it.
I think, obviously, the Danish director had seen this film, did his own version, and now
quite likely
it's been interpreted again. So, let's talk about the movie. It starts with Jake in this kind of first response call center environment. He's surrounded by screens with graphics that don't mean anything on, very kind of Star Trek, too many screens either side. In front of him, he has a bank of these huge TV monitors that just contain pictures of hellscapes. The city is burning. I think we're meant to believe there was a fire going on in LA at the time. As the movie, kind of the first 30 seconds of the film, you've got this audio playing over the scene, which features kind of police scanners and
the
people calling
emergency calls,
news crews. So you're meant to feel like, the temperature's really high, the city's on fire, this is hell on earth. So yeah, I mean, I've got the screens down so many times, but I think I'll kind of cover that. Lots of use of screens.
It was a very well resourced call centre for 911 responders with also hardly anyone in it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, very well funded.
Yeah.
Very well funded. Just turned over my notes here. So, he answers a few calls. Between calls, you find out that he's an ex-cop. Well, he's a cop, but he's not actually a cop on the street at the moment. He's kind of on sabbatical in this emergency response centre. But he's due to go back on duty, be a beat cop as of the next day. Pow! We find out he's a father. His ex-wife calls him, and she wants to know, when are you going to be seeing the child? And he can't because he's working. And then she's like, but you're always working. And you kind of get the sense from her that she doesn't know he's a cop and he's not always been a cop.
But wait, a cop who's separated from his wife and there's custody issues?
I mean, it's The Last Action Hero all over again. It's pretty much the same story in all cop-led movies.
Quite well worn,
Lethal Weapon. Yeah, it's I could just name off loads of them. But, it comes as standard, right? Yes, out of the gate, he comes across as very stressed, very paranoid. I'll talk a little bit about that later because as the viewer, you kind of feel the same. So, pow, he gets another phone call from a young woman who is saying she's been kidnapped. Her name's Emily. She's in a van. She's all cryy and being very needy because she's been kidnapped, and Jake gets very upset and he's trying to find out more details about her kidnappers, and he keeps getting disconnected. And when he gets disconnected, other people keep calling him, like his wife or his colleagues or a New York reporter. And then he gets back on the phone with Emily and he finds out that she has a daughter and a son at home, and he speaks to the daughter and then he speaks to the husband, and they have this kind of back and forth. And bear in mind, we're not seeing any of these characters. This is all taking place over the phone, and then they drop in all of these other annoying characters, all of his co-workers who won't believe him or won't take him seriously or won't help him to resolve the matter. They're all telling him to go home, and no, he wants to stay and get the job done. And as the story evolves, we get to find out a little bit more about Emily's character and why she has been kidnapped and what happens to her family, particularly the 2 young children. So you've got these kind of 2 stories running in parallel. You have the kidnapping, but in between the conversations with the kidnapped victim, you're finding out more and more about Jake's life and the fact that he is a beat cop who is currently in a bit of hot water. So in between the crime he may have committed and the trial, he's been working as this first responder call center guy. And then, so that those two parallel stories take place. Then we get to the end of the movie and everything kind of comes together, or I guess everything doesn't come together really. Everything kind of falls down and everyone is exposed, and we find out, who Jake's character actually is in the end. And maybe that's where that quote comes into play, but how did that stand? Guys, I don't want to go into too much detail on that because it's actually not a film with a lot of meat to it. So if I was to give like a full breakdown of scene by scene, it wouldn't really give you anything else than what I've just given you. Really, it'd just be very technical. He answered this call, this was said. Then he answered that call, that was said. So
then after receiving 2 missed calls from this person, he finally connected to them.
Yeah, exactly. There was a dial tone. Well, so
annoyingly, it went straight to voicemail.
Yeah, there wasn't a huge amount to kind of go on. So yeah, I mean, that's not to say don't give it a watch, but in terms of that synopsis, that's not a huge amount.
If pushed for time, I would say this movie is Locke meets Phone Booth.
Yeah, although Phone Booth had a little bit more kind of jeopardy to it.
He was out on the street, wasn't he?
Yeah. I mean, one thing I did think that is great and was great about this movie is, you mentioned it earlier, the fact that we don't see all these extra actors and all these other antagonists that are within the film. And I think that was really compelling because you could actually, I think, watch that film without watching the film. It could almost be audio. The whole film could be, an audio film, audiobook, a story, Graham.
Well,
a radio check. It could be.
I watched it with subtitles on because Gremlins. I've been traveling internationally this week. Don't want to go into it too much. So I watched this on the plane, and audio is not the best there. So I had captions on. And it was actually a really interesting film to read because those police calls, you often see them in transcripts and logs as well. So it's quite a nice parallel experience to do that. By the way, I think the central kind of bit where she calls and he realizes that she's in distress but she's hiding it comes from a real life story that we've heard about in a couple of podcasts, where this girl called the police and tried to order a pizza, and very quickly the first responder realized what she was doing, so started to say, to go along with it, but to ask her yes/no questions.
Yeah, that was quite recent though, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Or at least it was published quite recently. So it's just it's also a really good thing for people to be aware of, that if you ever are in trouble, you can pretend to be making a completely different call, and people on the other end are trained to pick up on that and handle it in a way that doesn't give away to the person at your end of the phone call what's going on.
Charlie, that was such a serious moment.
I feel
like worried now that I'm going to get kidnapped. So my thoughts on the movie is, let's run down my thoughts. So the first 5 minutes, one of my biggest takeaways was a question: can Jake Gyllenhaal act? And I say that because his voice was very monotone and his face was very lifeless. But then I realised this is the actor that gave birth to Donnie Darko. One of the most lifeless and monotone characters ever. So, yeah, this is his shtick, isn't it? This is what he does. This is what he does really well. So, once I kind of moved past that, I thought, okay, this is just the character. It's the character he's playing. Let's go. His voice, that monotone voice, would keep me calm. If my name was Emily and I was being kidnapped in a white van.
He makes a little go a long way, doesn't he?
Yeah, so he was a plausible, he was a believable... we need to find out the name. We keep calling them first responder caller people. Call handlers?
They must have an actual title.
So screen time, his face gets a lot of screen time. There's lots of close-ups, which I thought, it's very brave of him. The kids. So I mentioned earlier on that there certain parts of the film, he's speaking directly to Emily, the kidnapped victim's kids. I'm a little bit suspicious that those kids aren't kids at all. Whilst the tone sounded like a prepubescent kid.
You think it's
the cadence
Nancy
of the
Cartwright
voice
who does Lisa on The Simpsons?
Yeah, the cadence of the voice and even some of the verbiage sounded like an adult.
Yeah,
the tone, like when I'm saying,
that.
"Oh, I'm really upset. Where is my mum? Where is my mum?" It just didn't sound like a kid. It didn't sound like a kid to me.
No, I'm glad there was something really. I thought at first, wow, they've got a great kid actor, and then later on, I thought, no, something else is going on here.
And also, 6-year-olds these days are pretty switched on. They'd be like, "Hang on a minute, yeah, I'm just going on to WhatsApp." Or they would be like, "Mommy." Like a kid from the 80s, like from Poltergeist. "Mommy, was she there?" A kid be like, "Hang on a minute, she's out. I'm just going to watch Netflix." Like,
just be like, let me just sync the Ring camera to my iCloud, and then you'll be able to see a live feed.
6-year-olds don't out of these days. I'm not buying it. Sorry. And was anyone else? If anyone's seen this, or if you do see this, I was suspicious of Manny, his desk partner.
Yeah.
What's going on, Manny?
Every Manny.
Manny, yeah. I'm every Manny. It's all in me. There was something weird going on there, Manny. I'm not you and Henry Fisher. I'm not fans.
I also found with the phone calls, there's quite famous voices on the other end of the phone calls. But I thought those were too. Well, I thought Jake's performance was really, really well done and fine tuned. I'm hesitant to say these actors phoned a performance in because that is too cheap a shot. But
we've just done it.
I've done it. It's happened. But there were some bits of dialogue which just felt a bit. And also, they were doing this weird thing by putting loads of sound effects in. So you remember when the cop goes to the house and he's like, "Oh, okay, I'm inside. I'm just looking through some books."
Yeah,
it's really dodgy sound effects playing, a bit like the Archers. And it was a shame that all that stuff was underdone. Because it sort of distracted me a lot from the taut goings on of, his job as a responder.
Yeah, and obviously there are some parallels with, because they really do, in the first part of the film, they really focus on the fact that Jake is trying to get LAPD officers to go round to Emily, the kidnapped victim's house, to check on the two kids, and he keeps getting hit with the kind of these barriers and these walls. No one will go, and it's very much like when a stranger calls, "Why haven't you checked on the children?" It's about 5 or 6 times he gets told no when he's trying to get a cop to go around there. So I wonder if that's kind of somehow paralleling his own situation, his own real world situation, and the fact that somebody was killed, so he killed somebody.
Yeah.
Wonder if there's kind of these two things were happening in, I'm going to say it again, parallel.
You do wonder why he's so angry and he has such a short fuse, and there is a point in the movie where it annoys you, but then it does all pay off, and it is his performance that makes the culmination of all that kind of worthwhile and believable.
And then halfway through the movie, Jake, I know I keep saying this, guys, but I know it's quite a confusing film, so we're just going to make sure we know which characters are which. So Jake Gyllenhaal's character Joe, when he's talking to the kidnapped victim Emily, it gets really sexy. She said, I think she said, I'm paraphrasing it, but she said something like, do you want to come with us? Do you want to come
to the zoo?
And he's like, "Yeah,
so
I do. I want to
there.
come with you." It got really weird.
Yeah, you're right.
It got really weird.
They started dating like randomly halfway through.
Also, at no point during this whole situation does a supervisor come along and say, "Your shift's finished. What's going on? Do you need some help?"
Yeah.
We've all worked in our fair share of call centres when we're a student. I mean,
and of all the call centres, this is the one.
Yeah. I mean, there is always a manager that comes in, logs into your phone. You're like, "Oh my God, this is the worst time for you to come." There's actually no one at the other end of the line. I've been talking to myself for the past 5 minutes. I want to die.
I can't believe you called the 911 team at call centre.
Yeah.
Hello, can we interest you in some emergency support for
And also this film to me was a living nightmare, just the way it's kind of set out, the dark tones, the hints of red, the fact that it's very much kind of audio based. For me, it felt very much like a nightmare coming to life. There were 0 surprises. I wasn't shocked by anything that happened, but maybe that's because I watched too many movies. I didn't need to see Jake Gyllenhaal being sick in the toilet. It made me almost run for my toilet and vomit. That was absolutely gross. Yeah, I guess the only other thing I would say is I'll leave you with one question. And that's for you, Gremlins, and maybe you as well, Charlie.
Yeah.
Is Owen Wilson a good actor?
Why is Owen Wilson coming to this?
It has no relation to this, but I was watching The Haunting last night, and I thought, hang on a minute. let me think of the last 4 Owen Wilson films I've seen. I need to find out from the Gremlins what they think of Owen Wilson and if he's a good actor.
Okay, well, I'm going to think about that while I make myself a cup of tea.
Very good, very good. Right, let's get on to Scream. Over to you, bad boy.
So where do we find ourselves this week? That's right, back in the mid-90s.
Also, we find ourselves with big, long faces with a broken jaw, even. Broken jaw.
Absurdly wide screaming mouths.
Ah!
So, you'll know Scream, surely, but you might want to revisit it like we did. Scream is set in a high school community in a nice suburban town, and it follows a group of teenagers with Neve Campbell's character Sydney at its centre. Are we saying Neve or Nev? What's the vibe
Neve.
there? It is Neve, isn't it? Neve Campbell.
Are you going straight into the synopsis?
Yeah, this is it. I'm in it.
Oh, okay. Can I just say something first? I don't want to sound repetitive, because I know I said this when we talked about the beach, but this movie, again, really took me back to my teenage years. It was such a big movie. It was responsible for so many like sayings and jokes and anecdotes in school that just didn't go away. So,
and in my case, multiple rewatchings on VHS.
Yeah, I mean, it was the first movie for me since the 1980s, the first horror movie since the 1980s that captured an entire generation. I can't think of another movie in the 90s that was horror focused that captured the nation, did so well box office wise.
Well, I think it kind of brought horror back as well. That was one of the amazing things about it at the time, is people suddenly remembered how good horror can be. So there's this group of teenagers. Sydney is the lead character, the protagonist, who very much fulfills the final girl trope that horror fans will be very familiar with. The teenager's being picked off by a creepy killer who's wearing a mask inspired by Edward Munch's The Scream. Iconic killer mask. I don't think anybody in the group would know about that painting, but hey. The first victim is Drew Barrymore. Actually, technically, it's her boyfriend, isn't it? As part of the setup. But, the first kind of main profile one. And this is another thing that made the movie quite famous, that Drew Barrymore's in it, but only for the first 10 minutes.
Do you know it was a budget thing? Or do you think she just aged out? Because she must have been in her 40s then.
I think it's one of those producer calls where it's like, hey, want to be relevant and have people talking about you? Turn up, do a couple of days shooting, and everyone will love it. And you won't have to do much work and you get paid quite well. Maybe she got a back-end deal. Who knows? Next up, Sydney has a close call, but the police arrive. So does her intense boyfriend, Billy Loomis. Loomis is the name of a character in Halloween. It's the first of many horror film references.
The Dr. Loomis.
Yes.
Yeah.
So her very intense boyfriend, Billy Loomis, is fingered for the murders. I just want to say fingered.
Such a child. Sorry, Bernie.
He's accused. So she's like, oh, it's my boyfriend who's been killing people, and now he's in jail. That sucks. But then another murder takes place while he's in jail, and another one. So it's directed by Wes Craven and written by the world's biggest Halloween fan. Halloween the movie, not the season, the holiday. This movie has a horror legend at its helm in Wes Craven, who more or less defined not the era of horror, but slasher horror and nightmare horror. He's responsible for a hell of a lot. Most notably, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Are you leading into something here?
All the characters in the film know the same thing. The characters know about horror movies, and they know about the cliches and the tropes, and they talk about them all the time, and they make references to movies all the time, including Wes Craven's movies. So it's a fiction, but set within a real universe referring to other fictional texts.
Totally,
Got it?
Totally meta. But I thought you were going to mention the fact that Wes Craven features in the film dressed as Freddy Krueger as the janitor, which is amazing.
Well, I was going to mention it later on, but now I will delete it from my notes.
I was just trying to show off there.
While you're a paper guy, listen to me delete my... I'm going off a laptop.
Just Google that scene, guys. It's brilliant.
Where was I? Yes. So even though they know all this stuff, they still fall foul of the killer, who's known as Ghostface in the movie or in the fandom. Ghostface Killer. Nothing to do with Wu-Tang Clan. There's a reporter called Gail, played by Courtney Cox. she's covering the murders, and she also covered the murder of Sydney's mother a year before. Sydney doesn't like her for that reason because she thinks she took liberties with the truth. And Deputy Sheriff Dewey Riley. Dewey Riley.
This is, can I just stop there for a second? This is one of the biggest issues I had watching this movie back.
Yeah.
I couldn't separate this and Scary Movie. Like, every single scene, I was getting confused. I was like, no, this doesn't happen. And then I realised I was thinking of Scary Movie. And on balance, Scary Movie is a better movie. I'm sorry, but it is. The two have now just become one in my mind.
Did you know that Scream's original title was Scary Movie?
Yeah, no, I didn't.
And it was changed by the producers.
I'll just put that on my notes.
There you go. And then delete them. So the movie's final act revolves around a house party where the kids are all watching horror movies together whilst being watched by Gail, who's put a secret camera in because she wants to cover what the kids are doing for her reporter journalism thing.
Sorry, I'm just laughing because I'm thinking of Scary Movie with Gail. Anyway, sorry. This is, what does he say? This is so-and-so reporting for Black TV. White folks are dead and we're getting the fuck out of here. It's just classic. Anyway, sorry, please do carry on. We're talking about Scream.
I'll carry on. The murders stack up. Sydney's father has been framed for all of the murders so far, so all the kids are back out. Billy is back out of jail. Him and Sydney hook up and they make love for the first time in Sydney's case.
Make it a love.
After we hear repeatedly throughout the movie that it's always virgins who escape death in horror films, because that's quite a common trope or theme of particularly 70s slasher movies, where it's the virtuous kids who don't do drugs and have sex who tend to survive or escape at the end, and the miscreants are the ones who get picked off. It's kind of latter-day Americana morality in action. Then at this house party, it all escalates. There's a lot more killing and murder and all the rest of it. Should I reveal the twist and the killer, or should we keep it a mystery?
I think go for it. I mean, it's been a while. I think everyone's had a encounter with Scream.
Turns out it's not just one, it's two of them. It's Billy and his friend, who are both obsessed with horror movies, spend all their times in the video
Don't get scared now.
watching VHSs over and over again. And as they're going through the kind of the big reveal and the denouement at the end, where they're explaining what their motive was and all the rest of it, they're constantly referencing all these movies that they've seen. Yeah,
it's back to what I was saying. There's talking about referencing. There was so many when I was younger. We were younger. There were so many sayings from this movie that just became part of our kind of language. Everyone would say like, "Don't get scared now," or "I'll be back," or and just with the final scene that you're describing, where the two killers start stabbing each other in non-lethal places. So when the police arrive, it looks like they're victims.
Yeah.
I was thinking, I don't remember this from news at the time, but I would imagine that there were quite a few young people that tried to stab each other in non-lethal places. Because remember when we were younger and Aliens came out, or Aliens was out, in school people would try and do the knife thing with people's hands.
Yeah,
do you remember?
with the protractor.
So what we're explaining is with a plastic knife or a protractor or a compass, you would place your hand over somebody else's spread hand and then very quickly
hit the gaps
in between the fingers, trying to mimic the very famous scene with Bishop from Aliens. And I'm wondering, did anyone try, and mimic these stabbings?
I'm afraid the research I did here did get a little bit dark, because there's clearly a commentary on the whole video nasties thing, which was, there's an era where, starting in the 70s, really, I think Clockwork Orange was one, and The Exorcist was another one, where some movies were pulled from distribution, certainly in the UK, but sometimes the US as well, because people feared that they would influence real life crimes. And there were a couple of cases where people claimed that a killer had copied what they had seen in a movie.
Freddy Krueger's based off a real killer, isn't it?
Well, there we go. So there's a clear commentary throughout that in the film where, Sydney says to them, both at the end when she's accusing them of being crazy and deranged, she says something like, "You guys have watched too many horror movies." And that's what she assigns that blame to them for being killers. Sadly, Scream itself, or the franchise, has been accused of inspiring real life killings and murders as well. So it's very circular. I don't know what to do about
Well,
that. I'm just going to move on from it.
Well, that was the whole thing about the 90s, particularly in America, where there was this demonizing of young people, right?
Yeah.
You know, music, grunge, movies, it was all about, so, you know, how bad teenagers were. So the kind of content that was driven by young people was all about, yeah, we are really bad. Yeah, we are killers. Yeah, we are this kind of stuff, which, you know, scared a generation above them. But yeah, that was very much kind of the theme of the time, darlings, the theme of the time.
And yeah, there's some scenes that are really telling there, like when the principal, played by the Fonz, is it Henry Winkler? Is that his name?
Yep. Good knowledge.
When he gets killed, they find out, they all run out of the house, and one of them says something like, let's go and see him before the police take the body down because he's hanging from the football post. And they're all really excited to see a real life murder. Meanwhile, Gail's character is very much focused on the truth. You know, she wants to uncover the facts behind the stories, and she intervenes as the film comes towards a close. There's this mix of journalism and reality combined with the fiction and fantasy of all these horror movies coming together.
Can I say the only person I wasn't rooting for was Sydney?
Yeah.
I want everyone else to survive except from Sydney. Except for Sydney.
What you want from
And Sydney, the Count was the main virginal character. Even when I was, I don't know, 12, 13, whatever, when I watched this for the first time, I wanted her to die.
There's something a bit smug about her.
She's so annoying and so... I mean, yeah, I just want everyone else to survive and for her to die. In fact, I wanted her to be the killer and the victim.
At
the same time.
Her being the killer would have been an even better twist.
Actually, the last thing I'll say on Scream is what they did really well. I mean, I think I'll just speak for myself, but I didn't know who the killers were for sure until you got to the end.
Yeah. You
jump around, you suspect, and that's a really great kind of testament to Wes Craven and the storytelling. I had no idea, and I think maybe I don't know if it's because I've seen so many movies or because that was such great storytelling, but often now I can tell where it's going.
But it's quite clever as well, because I think it tells us a lot about the era that the boyfriend and his friend kind of act like killers throughout the whole movie, but that's so normalised in 90s culture for straight white guys that it doesn't read as creepy or sinister. And the way they're joking around about it, everyone's like, oh, boys will be boys. Like, oh, guys,
but that's what makes good horror. Yeah, that's what makes good. Silence of the Lambs, Buffalo Bill. The reason that these horror characters are so well written and that people are so shocked when they find out who they are is because when you look back, there are clear markers at certain points they're telling you directly, I am the killer. And it's only when you look back that you realise we should have known. But now I'm bleeding on the floor. I'm dying.
And it's not... You shouldn't make the comparison between Scary Movie and say it feels ridiculous, because it is actually the same thing. Because when this movie came out, what everyone said about
secret,
it...
Sydney. What's up? What's up, Sydney? Feminine older itching got you down.
When this movie first came out, the thing everyone was talking about was how it's funny and scary at the same time.
Yep.
And Scary Movie is funny stuff about
Let's do Scary Movie. I think we should actually, if anyone's interested, let us know. I think we should recreate some scenes from Scary Movie. I think that'd be really funny.
Well, both films spawned plenty of sequels as well. So that's interesting. People clearly couldn't get enough of both of them.
We love blood and guts and gore, especially teenagers getting bloody and gutsy and gory.
So that's Scream. We did not rate Guilty at the start because we're going to do it at the end for both movies this week. So how many handfuls of popcorn for you for the Guilty?
I am going to give the Guilty 1 handful of popcorn.
1?
Yeah. I've seen it before. Seen that film, I've seen that format, I've seen it quite a few times now. It didn't add anything new to that kind of that genre, that subgenre of film.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, well, I'll give it 2 based on, I think it could have done a lot more. I think Locke, as a kind of comparison, a movie where
he loves Locke. That's the Henry Cavill film, right?
No, it's what's his name? Who's Venom? Tom Hardy. It's him.
Tom Hardy.
I think I heard a story that apparently he turned up on the first day of filming and just did the Welsh accent. And everyone was like, oh, what are you doing? He was like, I just think this guy's Welsh. And
That's Tom for you.
No one was expecting it. But in terms of other movies where someone is just on the phone for the whole time, Locke is a good, recent and decent comparison. I think that was way more interesting. So, review for Scream? How many handfuls?
It's got to be a 5. I don't think I can give it anything less. You know, especially as time's gone on, it's gone up. So yeah, it's got to be a 5 just for the nostalgia.
Also, the version I watched had been nicely up converted and
nostalgia. Sorry,
treated to bring it up to modern standards, and it looks really good. Actually, it's really, really well shot. It's a handsome-looking movie for what it is.
So, are we talking about a breed of dog, or are we talking about the show? How many?
I'm going to apply more dog terms to movie reviews.
Okay, so this handsome breed, this handsome film is getting...
The stud of a film gets 5.
Brilliant.
Which we won't hear.
So that's been episode 8. Flying by.
Crumbs.
8 episodes, 5 weeks in. Yeah, so thank you very much, guys. And remember, I like salty.
And I like sweet popcorn, and we will
see you on the back row. Bye.
Bye.
Hey Gremlins, so if you like the show that you just heard, is that right?
Yeah, it is. Keep saying. Keep talking. Keep talking, not saying.
Please rate and review us wherever you get your podcasts. It helps us get more feedback and produce the kind of shows that you want to hear, but also it gives us more visibility. Likewise, you can get us at popcorngremlins.com or on Instagram, which is Popcorn Gremlins, or on Twitter, which is Popcorn Gremlins.
And see if you can beat our best written review, which was 5 stars accompanied by the word LOL.
Boom. Bye.
Bye.